Hello and welcome everybody to, according to Andrew, number 70, Decentralized Business Model. So this is something I've been kind of bouncing around in my head. It needs some more work and stuff like that, but I wanted to kind of start talking about it and hopefully some of those ideas develop and maybe people have ideas of their own that they can kind of introduce. So uh, I started thinking about these ideas after reading Fourth Generation Warfare Handbook by Lind and listening to his speech on the different generations of warfare, and kind of thinking about how these things can tie into a business sense because there's a lot of things that it's a lot about taking initiative and doing making the adjustments needed to without having to get caught up in all the bureaucracy and stuff like that. And I hate bureaucracy, so that's a win for me. Um, though it definitely has its place. I'm not saying there is no reason for bureaucracy, but it basically allow like in a battlefield situation, like the dynamics are ever changing and stuff like that. And business has got a lot of similar things, though not nearly probably as on the tempo of some military campaigns. But despite all of this, I think it's really interesting idea to try to explore. So the idea was with third generation warfare is officers and stuff like that down to basically your NCO level officers, your sergeants and stuff like that, are allowed to take independent action and stuff like that. Don't have to run it through a hierarchy of stuff to make tactical decisions that can affect operational situations. And they can think about it on this larger level and make adjustments and stuff as needed. There's times where you're going to want to get approval or run ideas through someone before you take action, but um, I guess the easy way to summarize it is uh, ask for forgiveness, not permission, is kind of the philosophy of this generational thing. And in a business setting, this could be risky, this could be problematic, but I think if you structure it right and you have the right personnel in place, it could work. Now, there are some restrictions to it, and I think it would potentially incorporate with lean pretty good as well. So before we jump into some of the issues with this kind of idea that I have, let's get into lean manufacturing. So lean manufacturing is a principle that was developed in by the Japanese, specifically from Toyota's factory in the 1930s. Uh, really? 1930s? I thought they developed it after the war. My bad. So basically, it tries to set up a couple things. So they have five principles. It's defining value, mapping value to a stream, so how to get that value from non-value into value, creating a flow using a pull system and not a push system, and pursuing perfection. So basically, uh, as there's demand, the demand will pull all of the uh, products from their raw materials stage all the way through your factory to their finished stage. And ideally, there's basically nothing sitting on the shelves. It goes into your factory, goes through the whole process, and there's like a constant line. So like as this one's getting processed and handed off to the next stage, that stage is handing their section off to the next stage, which is handing it off to the next stage, which is handing off, finishing the product, which is then handing it off to the customer. This is in a perfect world, opportunity not in a perfect world, but this is the optimization. And the final is pursuing perfection. So that's where that gets tied in. A lot of the waste that they try to get away from are defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilizing talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and extra processing. And so the biggest thing that this adaptable and kind of third generation warfare uh, structure, corporate structure, um, would help with these eight ways is the waiting and the non-utilized talent, really making sure that people are put in the right place and that you don't have to wait around to get approval on things. You are taking initiative and stuff like that, and you can go and get things done. I realize this could run into issues in certain things, but it is what it is. So with that said, let's get into some of the issues that we're going on with this. So first off, America is really likes its centralized structures, from what I can tell. I haven't worked in a ton of companies, but the last one I did work at, they always claimed that they wanted this decentralized structure, and then continually push centralizing things like bureaucracy and needing to get stuff signed off by about 50 million people before I could get any, just like the most basic of paperwork done. There was certain there's a certain logic to it to a certain extent, but also I don't know. It's almost like I should have been. If you didn't trust me with this stuff, then I should have been trained to the point that you could trust me with it, so that you could have cut down on this amount of bureaucracy, and you would have saved yourself a lot of time. But I don't know. Because it was because not only was it wasting my time, it was wasting other people's time, right? So, as an example, standard work, which is basically the build manual for how to make something. I would get that. So I'd run it through the floor. This is a reasonable place to check because there's a lot of stuff that they know about how the product goes together that you working at your desk is not going to know. So that's fine. Um, and the design engineer, and again, they're going to know various cautionary tale type stuff that you're not going to know, especially the products that we were working on. They were going into homes and they were heaters, and so if there was an electrical issue or some other issue where the insulation wasn't put in properly or something like that, it could cause a fire and kill someone. So I understand wanting to be cautious there, but at the same time, you have to trust uh, the. I was a manufacturing engineer, and so you have to trust me in my role to be able to get that kind of stuff done for you in these settings, and to train me and give me the requisite knowledge. Now, in this regard, it was like 20 years worth of knowledge. It was debatably unknowable, but at the same time, it's like, well, why are we supporting products that aren't making us money? There's other issues. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. So it made it so that I had to get all this approval, and then like they would have to sit down and they would have to go through these procedures and flip through and go slowly and check all this stuff off, and it was wasting a lot. And their time was supposed to be designing the new generation of the products, so now they're wasting all this time on old product that to make sure that we're building it right, and there's all these issues, and so it was a massive time sink. And actually, that should have been one of my arguments. Now that I think about it, but anyway, so you have this massive time sink into this product, and it's not like it's something that I need to take into various considerations, but it also seemed like something that could have been taught, and the various issues that I need to look for. So I don't know, and this is basically what it's trying to solve. This is the problem that they're trying to solve. Is being able to have the people in place that can be like, okay, well, this is what's going on. I know enough of what's the knowledge of stuff like that, and let's do this, and this, and then move forward. And it makes it so you can be more adaptable in your situation. So uh, the issues that you have with this is there's no real great way to train these people into how to do this, or how a bunch of independent people are you're supposed to be independent together, right? Like all these independent people working together. How does that exactly work? So there's no real. I don't necessarily have a great structure, and it's probably going to be unique to each individual company. But there's that going on. The closest analogy that I could think of was Google, where they apparently were people could allot 20% of their time to just work on passion projects in the hopes that they could innovate something, and that works really good for Google. That also possibly opened the door for the SJW infiltration that they're currently dealing with, and it's probably going to kill their company. So trade-offs there. That's something that you're going to have to keep in check and kind of understand, and that's part of trying to make sure that you got the right hires and all that stuff for the job. One of the other things is that unlike the military, you don't necessarily have these people, so uh, the amount of training and trust that these positions require, like if I sign up for the U.S. military, I'm under contract for like I don't know 5-10 years or something like that, depending on the contract I sign. So when they decide to invest like 2 to 3 years of that, like let's say I'm under a 10-year contract, when they decide to invest 2 to 3 years of that into my education to make sure that everything's all good and they got the right kind of warfighter and thinker, and I got all my basic training and stuff like that done, um, they now have 7 years to utilize that knowledge that they've gained. That's not necessarily the case with companies. You know, people come and go much more frequently. So in that regard, maybe it's a bad investment. Um, and and the amount of money that it takes to train these people could potentially be expensive. So there's that. And I guess you could tie this into maybe a college course, but you know, this whole thing's got to get developed first. So it's in a weird gray spot, and I'm just kind of rambling about stuff at this point. But yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on that. I guess it wasn't really thoughts as so much as rambling and talking about my past employment history. But so let's dive into what this could look like. So if we have a group of people and we don't really have any formal organization and people are kind of independent already, this is also probably a pretty small company. Is This is probably the best way to start this whole structure. So people are already independent and required to do stuff on their own, and from there they can take initiatives on various projects and stuff like that, and say, hey, I see a market here, I see a market there, I see a way that we can optimize this or that, and from there they start building institutions and structures and stuff like that. Unfortunately, the more you do that, the more I think you probably strangle this procedure in the process, right? Because as you set up more institutions, more structures, those structures, in a sense, make it so that there is now a procedure that you have to follow to get from point A to point B, and that structure makes it so that while it makes it much clearer for new people and on what you need to do to get from point A to point B, it makes it also that there is only one way to get from point A to point B, and stifles ways for people to think and ways to do stuff that disallows innovation and creating better ways of doing things. And a lot of times when you have a structure in place, even if it's not the most ideal structure, people are just going to kind of not touch it because it's, let's say a classic line, it's easier to make a structure worse than better, as it were. So, I don't know, maybe this won't work, but I just wanted to kind of mull about uh, on the idea, and if anybody has some ideas on how to get it to work, I would be appreciative. Um, I know there's a couple job, or not a couple. There's one place that I was potentially thinking about working that might have this be a thing. Basically, they don't have enough of a structure to warrant, or that this could potentially get implemented. So that would be interesting. I think that could be intriguing. I don't exactly know what that would look like, but being able to kind of figure it out real time, I think would really help solidify some of these thoughts and how to get stuff done. Um, but yeah, I hope you guys are all having a good day, and I will talk to you guys on Friday. Have a good one. Goodbye.